Kat Dawes. Welcome to Sensitive Matters.
Oh, thank you for having me, amazing Christina. Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, I love that we get to
Yeah,
geek out about the things we love.
yeah.
Let's jump right in. So, one of your biggest creation is called Nowism, right? And I'd love to hear in your own words what the big deal is about this whole now thing, the present thing. Like, why is it so important to be in the moment?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it's a very poignant time in human history where the present moment, the now, really needs better marketing. We're very future orientated, we're very ambitious, we're leaning towards the next moment and often really missing this one. And alternatively, we sometimes hang out in the past a lot too. We have like the regrets and these sort of like these memories that can really pollute the present moment. And the truth is that life really is happening now, 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 now. And in the context of manifestation and creating a really beautiful future, the quality of the present moment is actually really flavoring the manifestations of the future. And so when I really worked this out, and I read the books, went to the seminars, got the t-shirt, stood on my head, did all the things, I realized that in order to truly be present in this culture where it's coming at you from news feeds and magazines and TVs and billboards and gossip, and it's like we're in this sort of a war zone of distraction. Then you've got the media, I like to call it the mediaocracy, and all the things that are sort of polluting the mental atmosphere of humanity. In order to really stay present is actually a really, like, it's a big muscle to flex. Hence why I knew for me that in order to stay present with all of these moments now, 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 and not to mention the 70,000 thoughts we have a day, which is neuroscientists are saying is somewhere between 70 and maybe 60,000, give or take a few. Like, in order to truly stay present, I was going to have to play a game because it's too easy for life to happen to you during the day. And we have these really good intentions. I'm going to be present. I'm going to be expanded. I'm going to be unbotherable. I'm going to love out loud today. I'm going to be the best me. But then you get that text message, or you hear that thing, or you get smashed with another bunch of emails. And, like this murdering forwards is just everywhere. And so it's so easy to forget to be present. And therefore, I knew for me, and look, I'm a entertainer originally. Like, I love entertainment. I believe that entertainment is the greatest educator. And for me, I was going to need mindfulness practice to be sort of really compelling and engaging and lighthearted, actually. Really like of levity and playfulness. And so that is how being in the now came to me. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure to sort of be all about that. Actually, it's a well sought after topic these days. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and as you mentioned, much needed because you spoke to a few things. It's the outside world, and our biology itself tends to be skewed in one direction, and then the world and the upbringing
yeah,
seems to rather strengthen in that direction, right? Like, make sure you've worried enough today, and
yeah,
like double triple checked everything, and yeah,
yeah,
rather than I know you always say flexing the muscle, like in the other direction, and it genuinely feels that way.
yeah,
Um, which sometimes, and you and I have worked together, and so I've uh, how to say it, like it's not, oh, I know the struggle, but it's sometimes not easy to, if the muscle is strengthened in a certain direction of specific worries, it feels like almost pulling a magnet in the opposite direction. And that whole concept of reprogramming our thoughts, right? The 70, 80,000 thoughts that you just mentioned, if they have been going into a certain direction, um, what are some of the tools that you've seen work that help pull the magnet kind of in the direction we want them to go?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's the ultimate question, I guess, like because there is the distraction is real. Um, the first thing for me is the deep cellular decision to commit to this practice, because if it's not important and if we don't contemplate why, it's really important to look after the quality of vibration, meaning emotion, look after the quality of the commentary that we're having. If we don't have a actual legitimate reason to raise that quality control department in the mind, then it's a nice intention, but highly unlikely to succeed because of all the very well rehearsed worst case scenarios that we are
Hmm.
in looping patterns with. And so for me, the first one is, we talk about taking a vow to now, and that is to really rest in a journal and to contemplate why it matters. And for me, the vibration matters because I know that the vibe becomes matter ultimately, like the laws of the universe, manifestation, this type of um, concept, and this universal law is legitimately responding to the now to now to now broadcasts that we are putting out there. And so if we really really knew that we're creating reality and that every single thought, every single feeling matters, meaning it makes matter eventually through sustained and maintained patterning, then we would put a huge quality control on that. And
Hmm.
so, one of the first things that I recommend individuals who start to work with me or take an interest in Nowism is to really check in with, do you truly believe that your thoughts and your vibe matters? And if the answer is yes, then we can start to really play with some of the actual techniques. But the first one is that real, like, is this really a priority? Because it's just so
Hmm.
easy to get just distracted.
Hmm.
And then following that, after you take your vow to now and you decide, like, yeah, this really does matter, and I'm going to do everything that I can to put a fine-tooth comb through my consciousness and at least attempt to be more about possibilities than problems. It's very easy for us to be about problems. It's very easy to talk to yourself about why you want to change, what needs to change, how come it hasn't changed yet, the difficulty in that. Like, we're in a deficit lack based culture a lot of the time. So being about possibilities and being about potential means to really get interested in that, and to be, we have a rule in Nowism, that, and the first rule is that the currency in your universal game of life is your attention. You pay attention, and when you pay attention, thoughts spring up, and then according to the quality of the thought, you have a feeling arise as well, an emotion, a vibration. And so, if the currency is your attention and you're noticing things in your life, well, what are you most interested in? And so, and again, this is really a journaling practice. A lot of Nowism is a contemplation momentum, so that you have a new system of priority that shifts in you over time, so that you really stop sweating the small stuff, decide to respond instead of react. When something inconvenient happens, there's a plot twist, maybe it's something to do with your jewelry people, the production, like whatever, like there's something that falls through. That's the moment where you really have this little moment of consciousness of, are you going to react or respond? And the response is what Nowism is all about. So we look for the gifts in the challenge. We talk about reframing if it's really difficult. Even though this really sucks and I feel really triggered by this right now, I like knowing that it's temporary. and that things are going to
Mhm.
move on. There's a lot of different prompts that we use in Nowism to assist us to have better quality conversations, even if you are in pain or there isn't a legit challenge. Because as you know so well, that there really are like things going on in life that are tricky to, feel good about. But through focusing on Taoism techniques, you really can learn to alchemize or alkalize
Mhm.
a toxic momentum and at least look for a gift in it, or at least what's the upgrade? What do I need to become? And so this
Mhm.
is where Taoism really begins. Is the number one, is it a priority? And do you truly believe that as you think and you feel that matters? And then second of all, the art of catching yourself out before a reaction kicks in and
Mhm.
looking into what is a higher response to this.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. I love that you're speaking to the emotion as well, because there's a few things that came up when you were just speaking. Um there's one element that I know a lot of people that hear about manifestation or affirmation, like those words are floating around a lot, right? And so
yeah,
there's the thing of like, oh my god, I can't have one bad thought, because then
yeah,
I'll attract a bad thing.
yeah,
And even as I'm saying that, right, my body tenses up, and I'm noticing like the and
yeah,
to really like honor the power of what we the power of us, really. And
yeah,
it comes to that decision, right, of like, oh yeah, it's something I believe that it matters, because maybe not
yeah,
everybody does, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're like, oh yeah, I'm aware that what I think does create my reality, um how do you address that fear that might come up in some people of like, oh my god, I just had that thought and now it's
yeah.
gonna happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that is the perfect example of how, you know the commercialization of manifestation, of affirmation,
Mhm.
the spiritual practice, even gratitude journals and stuff. Like there is definitely a commercialization, which by the way is not all negative. I love that it's become household, and at least there is an awareness, at least, and even if it's just the first bit of a really big conversation, at least it's entering the mainstream. But the one thing to remember about manifestation is that it's not about every thought manifesting straight away. What it is about the average energy, your average focus, your average style of thinking and feeling that matters. So
Mhm.
that's why every thought matters and every moment counts, because it's all adding to your average vibration.
Mhm.
And so if something happens and it's negative, or you have a spontaneous sort of like inner spiritual tantrum of sorts, and you know, you sort of lash out for a minute, fear not. It's not you. We have this with this sort of pleasure of a buffer of time before things manifest. Thank goodness we're not quite at the Harry Potter level, because then it would be chaos, right? It would be like winning, losing. Like it would just be like all over the shop. But this is that honor system that we're talking about, is to practice enough to get into a comfortable sort of momentum of best case scenarios, being about possibilities more than problems. Problems
Mhm.
arise and you're going to have negative thoughts. It's okay. But and I think everyone can relate to, perhaps, whether it's not yourself, then a person in your life that just seems to have a negative commentary about just about everything. Like they can even, find a problem with a rainbow, like, oh yeah, it means that, it's going to rain, like, so there, there is a habit of thinking that really
Mhm.
matters here. And I think that's a really great discernment of what it really means to manifest, is to raise your
Mhm.
average energy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. When you mention, how a lot of us have those kinds of people in our lives, or even when you're saying it, I know I sometimes I see myself in that at times. And if I go into really asking, and that's what's been so powerful about doing this work, it's really watching my thoughts and
Yes.
becoming honest with myself, but also becoming kind with myself, right? Of like,
Yes.
why would I right now be naysaying whatever is happening? And there's something weirdly soothing. And then I'm like, oh wow, there's something weirdly soothing. So I'm actually looking for soothing right now. But does it actually work? Does this actually make me feel better right now?
Mhm.
Absolutely not. All right. Because I'm a very like logical and practical person. And so anything that's you know the term spiritual bypassing pops to mind, but like anything that kind of overrides what what I'm seeing in my reality is tricky for me. And so I kind of had to um in a way gamified for myself as well, like one, to really decide that this is something that I'm realizing is happening. And something that really helped me as well was to understand the biology component of it, of like,
Yeah.
oh, my brain is going to be programmed to always look for danger. And so I'm like,
Yes.
okay, that makes complete sense to me. And there's another part of my brain that has superpowers that can
Yeah.
visualize things, right, that can
Hmm.
imagine things. And you
Yes.
spoke, I'd love to hear you speak about that more, the imagining piece of like being deliberate about it.
Hmm.
Because the worry element, it's almost like it wasn't a choice because it's planted in there. Some is
Yeah.
trained, but some is biology. And to then really be like, no, 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 I'm gonna come up with something. And I hear you fully on the contemplation, what however that works for people, right? Journaling is great because
Yeah.
it slows us down so much and we really
Yeah.
like see what we're thinking, but it's that moment of actually realizing, oh, this is what I'm doing right now, and it's trained on and it's not really working. And
Hmm.
that moment of like, but I do have a choice. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
quite natural yet, maybe, but I do have
Hmm.
a choice.
Yeah. I think yeah, there's a few things that I want to say about it. The first one is that our character, our character traits are built over time. So for instance, if you have some circumstances from the past where you're standing in front of a school auditorium and you had to recite a thing and then you just like lose it, right? There's a boy or a girl in the front row that you got a crush on. You're like, you just can't think straight, and then suddenly, like, you just cannot. And then you have this like a huge emotional like response in your body, and then maybe like people start snickering in the audience, and so now like you can cultivate a level of doubt from a heightened emotional event like this, right? Then you walk down the timeline again, and then maybe something similar but different happens, and then it sort of loads and codes this doubt into you, and so then you start to think, oh yeah, I'm not really good enough, like I can't handle like speaking in front of people, or I'm messy with my words, like I'm just embarrassing. And so and these like this builds up over time, and we have this layered effect where when we have a rehearsal of a certain train of thought due to real events that meant something to us, elevated emotions, very powerful, then over time you're not just somebody who had a one embarrassing moment, you now become a person who has self-doubt. You become a doubtful person. You become an unworthy sort of human, and so these personality traits are built up and literally rehearsed by us over time. And this is why it's so difficult to change too, is because there's a layered effect, and we
Mhm.
rehearse them and accidentally, we don't want to, but it's just like they start to loop, they become very meaningful, and then the neural network starts to fire and wire in that certain pattern, and it gets very strong, and then it's autopilot. You don't even need to think about being unworthy. You just are to yourself. And so that's playing out in the background. Now, here's the really interesting thing about biology is that if you've been that person for so long and then you decide, you know what? I want to become more confident. Like I want to practice some Nowism. I want to do this process, be in this game. I'm going to start to shift and lift my interiority. And so you make the decision, right? So then in the nowness of the moment, when you have the unworthiness start to bubble up, you can feel this, the dread or the lack or whatever it is. And then you can hear yourself saying, like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I've never been able to do this. And so then your conscious mind, your nowism in a now ninja, catches you out and says, this is the moment, right? And instead of reacting, you're going to respond with it, with a new dialogue about being confident and that I'm on my way to changing this, and I feel really good about this, and good on me for going for it. In that moment, the chemistry of your entire physiology wants you to activate the emotions of unworthiness because you're addicted to that personality trait. And so we go to like change it, and it happens all the time, but it doesn't feel real, Cat. Like I'm saying these confident things, but it's like it's not real. And it's like, yeah, because you're just really good at being unworthy. And so when we go to change, we have to treat it like a drug addiction. That whether your conscious mind doesn't want to feel unworthy, your conscious mind doesn't want to feel lack, right? But if you're used to worrying about money and coming from a poor family and always chasing and always scrambling for the next dollar, when you got to shift that, everything in you is addicted to the old pattern. And so this is why it's difficult to make that transformation, because we have to like literally go against the physiology,
Mm-hmm.
and but the good news is that if you do catch it out and interrupt the pattern, in that very moment you start to prune the synaptic connections that are trying to be the old you, that's predictable, that's comfortable, that comfortable in your unworthiness, comfortable in your lack. In that
Mm-hmm.
moment when you catch it out and you like, I've decided something here, and you interrupt that pattern,
Mm-hmm.
everything in you like freaks out for a bit because you're pruning that synaptic
Mm-hmm.
connection, and then you start to fire and wire in a very weak way in the beginning, honestly, but you're firing and wiring this new momentum, and it takes
Mm-hmm.
practice, it takes like commitment and discipline, and you have to stick with it long enough that actually like gets under your skin, and then instead of it being a practice, eventually you just have a higher response to life. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but I love that you brought up the physiology of it, because it's honestly why a lot of people give up on this practice, because they go to change something and they're like, it's not real. Like, I legitimately feel sad. I legitimately am feeling lack. And so now I'm going to lie to myself. Like, is this spiritual bypassing? And this is where like it's muddy water, right? We have to check in. Like, is there more to explore in this myopic thought form, or this mediocre opinion that you have about yourself? Do you need to explore that and understand where that comes from more? And there's value in that in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know it's just a habit of a negative focus and it's not serving you, then you got to get your now out eventually. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where this practice really like turns up a notch, because you're going against your chemistry in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And as you
Yeah.
were just describing that, having certain patterns that are trained on, that are, well, not even just trained on, that have become like physiology in our brains,
Yeah.
it it has something of like, even if a situation is less than ideal, like let's say our upbringing, and
Yeah.
even in some extreme cases, like in abusive homes, and you
Right.
see the patterns in people, that why do they feel drawn to be creating that in their lives? And
Yeah.
as you were just describing that, in a way something clicked for me, how I said, oh, it's weirdly soothing to think a certain way. Like it actually truly is, because it
Yeah.
feels like truth of like that
Yeah.
is how it's always been. So it's like it feels like a law of that's how the world works.
Right.
And also it feels like home, like that's
Yes.
just, so there is that soothing element. And then to really understand, but that is physically created, like the neurons have been
Yeah.
shaped in my brain. So
Yeah.
yes, there is truth to that, but that also means other homes, quote unquote, can be created by
Yes.
kind of like leaning in that other direction, as
Yeah.
clumsy as it feels. But it really does then take that commitment, right? I'm
Right.
gonna do it over and over and over, and I'll
Yeah.
notice, okay, that old place feels like home, but I'm trying to move. I'm trying to
Yeah,
create a new home.
yeah. We have
Yeah.
a game in the Nowism curriculum, like, where you evict yourself from the comfort zone, because that's what that
Mm.
chemistry is. It
Mhm.
is predictable, it is reliable. I get to be good old reliable me, banging around in the stuff that I don't love, but subconsciously love the familiar space. And so
Mhm.
to evict yourself from the comfort zone is really like this like throwing yourself in a completely different direction and allowing yourself to unhook from the past, because all of that is actually the past active in the present moment. And so,
Mhm.
and this is why we talk about it being like a gym. You got to go to the vibrational gym and do the reps. And if you do the reps for long enough, you'll eventually, it'll strengthen the muscle. But at first, it's like learning a script. You got to just learn the words. They don't feel real. But you
Mhm.
say it's like lying to yourself. If you lie to yourself for long enough, you start to believe the lie, right?
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
so this like learning a new script. I'm moving towards greater days. I love that I'm interested in my consciousness. I'm doing a
Mhm.
good job. Like to
Mhm.
just learn a softer, more friendly conversation. Once you understand and learn a few of the words, then you can
Yeah.
start to work on the feeling tonality that matches that.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love absolutely always have how you play with words. Like there's genius in that. And I want to dive more into the game and some of
Hmm.
the words and concepts you've
Hmm.
created. There's one more thing that came up as we were just speaking, and it's a bit more, even more in that direction of, what if something happened in our lives that created a truth. And in my work, I work a lot with trauma, and it's quite a hip word that
Yeah.
floats
Yeah.
around these days as
Yeah.
well. And it's good that it is receiving the attention
Hmm.
finally for people that are dealing with traumatic events that have happened in their lives. How how does that play in, if there's something that genuinely is like wounded,
Yeah.
it's beyond, oh, that's an unpleasant pattern and I would like to
Yeah.
shift out of it. How can somebody
Yeah.
who's dealing with that can attend to it enough while still healing into a direction that feels nurturing and
Yeah.
positive?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a sticky area, right? Like
Mm.
there's a lot of trauma in this world, and a lot of people experiencing very uncool things, and also, perception amplifies the things. Like, if you're a kid and you turn around and your mum's not there, you feel abandoned.
Hmm.
She's around the corner in the aisle shopping for a thing, but then suddenly you can create this huge meaning out of it, right? And so, but with a huge honor towards all of the spectrum of trauma there, the and this is a spiritual response. The human will always gravitate to, no, it's not fair and it's not okay, and I think it should be like that. The human in us is that person that feels that pain.
Hmm.
However, on a spiritual note, we are living in a universal pattern that is working for us, not against us. The nature of life is intrinsically good. It is dynamic, it is creative, it is powerful, it is expanded. So when we disengage from the specifics for a minute and go to the general pattern of life, that life is working for us, not against us, and that there is always a gift in circumstances, conditions, then so from that context, right? And context is important because your context of where you live from determines your perception. If you're waking up in a friendly universe, this is part of the game of nowism. We wake up in a friendly universe knowing that it works for us, not against us. That's a context to live from. So if you live from that context, then even if somebody like smashes their car door into your car, because you're living in a friendly universe that's working for you, not against you, you will go and look for a gift and that on some level.
Hmm.
Now, so then when we talk about trauma and the things that happen to us, to in order to make it useful, where I come from with this is that trauma, challenge, pain, these are all initiations. Some of the most profound humans in human history come from the most diabolically bad circumstances and conditions. But the ones who manage to reframe that pain into an initiation of activating the dormant superhero powers, sometimes it's about becoming a messenger of hope for people who are experiencing a similar circumstance. We have the capacity to let the those traumatic moments really be the thing that gives us wings.
Mhm.
And but again, this is a more graceful conversation to be had from the spiritual realm than in the trenches with the human, because
Mhm.
it's not okay. And the things
Mhm.
that happen are like so traumatic, but
Mhm.
it's almost like Nowism gives you simultaneous awareness. You got to be honest with how you feel. You throw your toys, have the tantrum, do all the things.
Mhm.
But then it's like simultaneously, there is a part of you that knows that you signed up for the time and space gig. You came here to activate your gifts, your talents, your capacities. You came here to experience the contrast of have and have
Mhm.
not, and up and down, and all of the things. And so there's almost like a part of you that smiles at all of it,
Mhm.
like the
Mhm.
pain included.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
so for anyone out there who's experienced a great trauma and is wondering what to do with that, how can you really move forwards without that really polluting every present moment, then I recommend reframing it and look into the transformational value that that can give you. And it
Mhm.
often has to do with, what do I need to become now in
Mhm.
order to move past the trigger or the memory or the
Mhm.
trauma. Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's a
There's a
big conversation.
It's a really big conversation, and there's a few things that come to mind because you and I have known each other for a long time. You know my story, and the, the last couple of years have been very, very challenging for me, as you are aware. Some of our listeners might not in the details. However, when I came to you and we just recently started working again, you said something that was really soothing, in a sense of, it's the right time. It's the right time that I have a glimpse of it again. And as I was going through kind of the darkness of it, it would have been too far of a stretch. I would have been like, come on, Kat, like don't come, like that is, it's almost like too
Big
positive.
jump. Yeah.
However, I know what would have been helpful in the depth of it is like a, a fraction of, like even just 1 degree direction of,
Hope.
okay,
Yeah.
what do I want it to feel like when I'm out of this, and it would have been like, I'm safe. I can remotely see hope and something positive. And
Yeah.
and that, you probably know where I'm getting to. It's like the what is accessible to me right now in this moment
Right.
that doesn't feel fake. That doesn't
Yes.
feel like I'm,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just making
It's a
something up.
yeah, it's a really good question, and I think that there's one energy in particular that's a total game changer, and that is willingness.
Mhm.
And so for individuals who are absolutely in the trenches of the worst right now, I recommend that if you have the energy to participate in your
Mhm.
consciousness, in your thinking, in your feeling, that you may take to a journal and just actually talk to yourself about, I do not have the answers, but I'm
Mhm.
willing to find
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I although I and this is a reframe thing too, even though this feels so hard and feels permanent, I like to imagine that it's temporary.
Yeah.
And even if you can just soften the you know how when you're in the depths of despair, it feels like eternity. It feels like you are literally parked on the eternal nature of this damnation, and it's never going to get better.
Mhm.
Like that is like one of those, it's a dark space, right? And so there's a few things, but the willingness, the energy of that willingness to, well, what if there is something beyond how it seems? Just the contemplation of that
Mm. Mhm.
can put a crack in the certainty of the eternal damnation,
Yeah.
and yeah, but as you said, it's like you have to be in the vicinity of asking those questions in order to get into a new momentum.
Mhm.
And that is timing, like it is. Like being in the dark is like a germination for a seed.
Mhm.
Like there are gifts in it, not for your surface mind. No, all you want to do is get out of it. But there are gifts, but they come later. And
Mhm.
so trusting that there is timing, and you can only trust, like, if you're listening right now and you're in the vicinity of your answers, then you can trust things are temporary, things move on, like the chapter does
Mhm.
change. But if you're in it, you're in it. But don't
Mhm.
worry, life is a movement forwards, with or without your agreement on that. it
Yeah.
just it just is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but willingness being the major energy there.
Yep.
And then also imagination. So if you are in the vicinity of a few answers, or at least hope, I always recommend, instead of like trying to do the, well, I am on my way, I am going to make it. Like the I am is like, it's really, really abrasive to someone who's just in this vulnerable, soft, like space. But what we
Mhm.
can do is start to access the imaginarium.
Mhm.
What if this got easier?
Mhm.
What if I am moving on? What if this is actually the beginning of a great understanding? What if this actually became a great gift in the larger story of my life? What if this was really where I'm meant to be right now? What if? And what if is such a powerful thing. Honestly, in our culture, people what if in the negative direction. What if it doesn't work out? What if I don't make it? What if it's like you're using your superhero powers to rehearse your worst case scenarios? But if you have the space and the softness with you to just start what ifing in a positive momentum, then that can start to let the light in as well. What if? You know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I can feel, the my body relaxing. Also, as you spoke to the temporary element, and
Yes.
yeah, it's it's funny, like when I'm going through like the depth of something dark, and somebody comes to me like, oh, honey, it's a gift. I get angry, right? In that moment I get angry because I know, because there's something in me that is convinced that this is the truth right now, and it is permanent, and it will forever be there, and it is like, why in the world would this be happening to me? And so in that moment, like, that is too far of a stretch. But can I make friends with the fact that maybe it isn't permanent? And then my body goes like, oh, that feels really nice to imagine that maybe it isn't permanent. And so then
Yeah.
that's, that might like tiptoe me out of that hole. And then absolutely, like, depending on what it is, right? Like, what comes to mind, my mom passed away when I was 18. That took me years to get to a point to say, actually, the fact that that happened, in a way, as much as I miss her, was a gift. Like, I am a stronger, more here person for it. But, that took me probably a decade at least to feel
Yeah.
at peace, to acknowledge that. And then there's other phases of darkness that maybe aren't as long, but still, I get to the point of like, oh yeah, I can start to see now how that could have,
Yeah.
like, what the gift in it was. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a something that's can be soothing too, and I'm engaged to a man who does storyboards for Hollywood for big films like Spider-Man and Iron Giant, and being interested in entertainment and storytelling, we have these really amazing, rich conversations about the what makes a great story, not a good story, like a really great story. And what makes a really great story is where your lead character has it like your lead character has to have an absolute dark moment where there is true despair. They've like lost everything. They don't see a way out, and something is trying to happen, but they're denying it, they're pushing against it, like there is just this no way thing. And then there's some sort of little plot twist where they have to sort of activate something dormant in them and face the very thing that is their number one wound, or do the absolute like crazy impossible in their eyes, like face that darkness, the shadow. And so it's I think it's encouraging to know in the context of us incarnating, coming from eternity into time, to live out a human life, to live out an exquisitely unique, brilliant human story. You cannot live a great story without a really, really shit chapter. It's the nature of this dimension, and it is creating the contrast for your victory. And so I feel like when it comes to it's funny, isn't it? We like to go to the movies to witness that very thing I was talking about, like the hero's journey, like this character that has to face this thing and either has to change something in them or in their world or whatever. And we love like opting into watching like films like that, and we get this real celebration of the human spirit and the possibilities. But yet we really don't want to be the lead character. We don't want it to happen to us. We really like have like as soon as the shift hits the fan or you experience that great loss, you lose everything. It's like there's a part of you that just does not want to be in the human design anymore. And yet we all subscribe so deeply to the victory of when people face themselves and have dominion over themselves, and then have that breakthrough. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it's the, what comes to mind is like sometimes we'll watch a movie that makes us sob, and like it's just and it feels so good, like as
Yeah.
long as that doesn't happen in my
Yeah,
own
like,
life.
yeah, you know,
And even like
yeah,
some people, like my nervous system cannot handle it, but horror movies, right? Being absolutely horrified for entertainment. Like,
right? And it's like, but we sign up for the whole spectrum of the
yeah.
human experience. We sign up for the great love. We sign up for the heartbreak. We
Mhm.
actually sign up for all of it. And this is where like the some of the more Eastern metaphysical stuff like Buddhism, Hinduism, that whole sort of like, we come, we have the highs and the lows, but their sort of goal is the neutral ground. Like, just don't buy into any of
Right.
it. Like, it's all like, But I feel
Yeah.
like there is. I'm, like I love those practices, and I believe there's so much wisdom in stilling the mind so that we don't fly off unnecessarily. And you've heard me talk about this in our sessions, like the inflammation of interpretation. It's like
Mhm.
my interpretation is creating suffering in me, and I feel like there is great wisdom in learning how to temper that a little bit. But then
Mhm.
there's the romantic, I mean, the storyteller in me is like, like, let's have life, like, let's have it all. And
Mhm.
so those dark chapters, they happen, and they can
Mhm.
feel very long, but they really are just a piece of an entire puzzle, and it's helpful to
Mhm.
know that when you're
Yeah,
in it.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Thanks for entertaining, these darker aspects.
Yeah, it's
In
important.
and I'd love to pivot a little bit,
Yeah,
because so much about your work is about playfulness and lightness,
yeah,
right? And like,
yeah.
and really choosing that very deliberately while
Mhm.
acknowledging, yes, all of that is
Yeah.
in the world. Um, can you share more about your freaking genius. You already dropped a few of the terms, right? But like, how do you, what does the game look like? Just a little snippet, and what are
Sure.
some of the ideas, the concepts of how to playfully bring these
Yeah.
ideas into our lives?
So good. So the game begins that you are free will. That's your name, even though you think you go by the name Christina. In the idea sphere of the galaxy, you're known as free will, and you are greatly loved by so many galactic figures who know that you are chosen by Omni, by God, Source, the universe, to be the ears and eyes of the universe, to live out an amazing human life, right? And so, loaded and coded inside of free will is all of the galactic powers of creation. So then free will comes into linear time, gets all up in earthen things, and before we know it, as she's marching down that timeline, eventually falls asleep inside of the dream. And so from the idea sphere, these galactic beings are watching free will looping and recreating stuff that it really doesn't want, like, and complaining and moaning about, like, when am I going to get that big break, like, why can't I just make some more money or do things that I love? And they're so curious, because it's like, why would an all-powerful being actually choose to recreate and regurgitate like lack, loss, limitation, fear, doubt, worry? And so it becomes a curiosity in the galaxy. And that's when there's a lead character, Dr. Now, who's realizes, no, free will's literally fallen asleep inside of the dream, and is so distracted by, like, all of the variety, that she's actually forgotten how to use her currency of her attention in a way that's super powerful. So there's a quick divine intervention, and he gives her a reality creation 101 sort of, like, quick quick session, a quick class on, like, don't just be throwing your attention around like that. You're creating a monumental amount of destruction in the universe. And so then he starts to introduce her to some of these concepts. So number one, you're loaded with a ally. Your ally is your inner now ninja. Your inner now ninja is that part of you that's always voting for your victory. That part of you that you go to do that old habit that you really are trying to stop doing. That's your now ninja, that's like, really like, you can do it, you can do it, right? And then on the flip side, you've got these villains that live inside of you. I always felt like the term negative thinking wasn't quite filthy enough. Like, it's not, doesn't doesn't explain the damage that you do from a perpetual negative focus. So we introduced the momentarists, they terrorize the moment. And basically what that is like all these negative habits, the chemical component too of, like, being addicted to lack and loss and worry, scarcity, unworthiness. And so we sort of we face the momentarists. You learn about them, you understand how they feel, what they whisper in your ear that talks you out of your greatness, and then the habits that come with that. Then, basically, in a nutshell, the game is all about, your job is to clock up airtime in your mind with the high vibes, with the energies that are alkaline, that are transformational, that are about your creativity and your possibilities, instead of giving way and letting the momentarists continue to hijack your present moment. So then you learn a bunch of tools. We've got, like, there's various characters too. Like, one of the everyone's favorite villains is Professor Crastinate, who's talking you into doing it tomorrow. And then we've got, like, other characters like Tom Orro from the future, who's really voting for the next moment instead of this one. And then you got Drew Back, that's stuck in the past, and he's all about, like, record keeping and regurgitating the way it's been. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of characters like this. There's a Genie Ross, who teaches you, how to be in connection with your abundance. He teaches generosity. We've got, like, there's a monkey and a cow. There's a rat. A rat is the newer one. It's the radical. It's a crumping, twerking rat that is all about. It's a whole lesson about, like, try and not give a rat's ass what people think. And so it's very like, but here's the thing about entertainment being a metaphysical like style of teaching. Play, the energy of play is very underestimated in this world of seriosity. And what I've discovered, my greatest results and manifestations always took place when I was just being easy about it and when I was just having a good time. And so, and as I've watched this, because I'm very strategic with like watching what are the things that I wanted in my life, and then there were these big plot twists where suddenly like my life changed dramatically for the better, huge victories. And I was always in awe that, wait, I wasn't sitting there with my vision board, like trying to make it happen anymore. I was just busy having a good time and really saving the present moment from unnecessary negativity. And so that's really the premise of the game is how many moments can you save from unnecessary negativity? And when we play from that space and you do everything that you can to catch yourself out, switch it, lift it, quack, water off a duck's back. We have all of these little playful things. There's a potato, drop it like it's hot, like it's all silly, but the wisdom in it is active, and these are modalities to assist you to do it in the present moment. Because it's beautiful to sit in the morning session and to go deep, learn, study, meditate, and all of that. But how's about when you're in the traffic jam or when you're at work or when you're like doing life? Where is your wisdom in that moment? And so part of the reason why we created like such an entertaining curriculum is that it's catchy and it's easy to remember. I have so many people now who use the word momentarist in a sentence, and it blows my mind. I'm like they've got it going on, or they are, no now ninja will work for free. You've got to pay your ninja, and they all talk about paying their ninja the proper amount of attention because that's the currency. And it's so fun. Like the culture of it is really in this beautiful flow now, and I've really seen the wisdom of creating playful, catchy things that are easy to remember that just assist you to like be more expanded, willing, forgiving, loving, patient, like whatever it is, whatever vibes you are needing to activate and to represent more of. We find ways to make it catchy so that you do play your game. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's been, really 20 years in the making in so many ways. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh my God, I freaking love it. And it keeps growing and expanding. Like,
Yeah, it really does.
oh, I remember
So
like
fun.
15 years, however many years ago,
Yeah.
you were over and you're like, can I, you were reading snippets of your book
Yeah.
and now it's just already there was so much richness there, and it's really beautiful to witness how it continues to deepen and how it works. Like it really, there's a reason why that's like built into humanity. Like stories work. It's storytelling that like teaches us. So it's
Yes.
genius to
Right.
come from that angle where like actually our biology as well like is drawn to stories and to games because there's something like we know we're gonna
Right.
we're gonna learn something, but like it's fun. I love it.
Uh,
It's so good. It's so
yeah.
good.
It's it's the ancient form of teaching is
Yeah.
sitting around fires, telling tales. And it's true
Yeah.
that I could sit and give you information of metaphysics, and it's exciting, and you can write notes and whatnot. But I know that if I tell you a story about a genie, a needy genie, that when you rub the lamp and he's asking for stuff, and you're like, "What is this? I got a dud genie," and then you work out like when you give to the genie, then through your generosity, that's what gives you the abundance. That's an easier thing to remember in this life
Hmm.
than blocks of information, and
Totally.
I've seen
Yeah.
it young and old. It's
Yeah.
a very beautiful thing to reactivate during
Yeah.
this time in human history, especially. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Amazing.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
I know we're coming towards the end, and there's a bunch of things that I wanted to cover, but um, I'm curious around the you've worked with so many people by now. There's a few themes that you and I are working with, and I'm also wondering, like, what would be some life themes that the people listening would be dealing with. We're going to launch this episode around Mother's Day, but it's obviously going to be live
Yeah.
forevermore thereon. But around, the theme of motherhood, a few pieces come in that maybe we could play with a little bit of what could
Yeah.
help um people out there that are kind of working around certain stories, and maybe you can help me out in like shaping some patterns that we could play with. Like one that comes to mind is like the sense of nurturing, because even
Yes.
as I woke up this morning, and I'm not a mother yet, and still there was like, oh my god, my life is so full, and I haven't slept enough lately, and it's like, oh, now I there was a thought in me is like, now I gotta do this. And then I was like, wait a second, this is what I've always wanted to. I get to create, and I get to be with amazing people, and I get to,
Yeah.
but so one theme that I feel we could look into is that understanding of like, I have no space for myself, and things are so full.
Yes.
um and then the other area that comes to mind is, people out there who are aching for a sense of motherhood or creation or belonging, um and there's an ache towards that because they feel they don't have that, because I know Mother's Day also brings that up for a lot of
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
um I'll kind of hand it to you, what
Yeah.
what you're thinking
Sure.
comes up.
Yeah. What comes up for me straight away is the energy of the female in general. We
Mm,
are, when I say the female, I mean the feminine, and it's in men also. But there is a level of service loaded and coded inside of us, whether we like it or not, actually. And when we think of Mother Earth and the way that she just keeps bringing the air and keeps bringing the water and keeps bringing the fire and keeps bringing the rocks, and there is a relentless, inexhaustible um, service posture that's coming from that divine Mother Nature. And so when I think about what can we activate in us is really making peace with the service posture. We are all in service to each other, actually. There is not a day that goes by on some level where you're not served by someone or you are serving someone. There is this lovely exchange that's just constant. And so when it comes to the exhaustion and feeling like, oh, not having time, and not having space for the self, I would what comes to mind is really when something is lacking, I always go to like, well, how can I give that energy on some level? And so I would recommend for even if you're feeling exhausted because you're in the nurturing position for someone else, whether it is that you're an actual mother or whether you're mothering a team of people or you're just looking after people, dogs, plants, whatever your gig is, right? To take a moment and not underestimate the power of like a little micro meditation. Stand on the earth. You know how we don't have time? You've got
mm,
60 seconds though, really. And so to stand on the earth, barefoot if possible, but just and to just notice the inexhaustible service of the nurturing and the goodness that's coming at you, because that part of us that's in overflow, and then if it's not overflow, right, but we're in service and it becomes a hemorrhage. That's what exhaustion is, that's what overwhelm is, that is what feeling like not seen, heard, loved, validated, and so of course we need to fill up our own cups in some level. And what I want to recommend is the supercharged version of that for busy people, is this stand and do 60 seconds of a quality acknowledgement of the unending overflow that's coming at you from everywhere, whether it's just the air that you're breathing. Acknowledge that there is a givingness of the living intelligence of life that is constantly giving to you. And just give thanks, give thanks, give thanks, because what you're doing, you're reflecting and revealing that cosmic pattern in your world in the way that you're serving others. And so really it is an equal exchange. And through just acknowledging that and giving yourself that 60 seconds, we can fill our cups really quickly. It's
Mhm.
like a little perception correction, right?
Mhm.
You raise that energy and really just give great thanks. Just be in
Mhm.
true gratitude and appreciation for the goodness that keeps coming at you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah. And for
Hmm.
those who are feeling wounded and wanting to mother, be the mother where you are, you know. And if you happen to live on an island on your own and it seems impossible, then be the one to water those plants with the absolute graciousness of giving lively spiritual goodness. You know, there's
Mhm.
we can activate the that feeling of the that desire to be the mother. I have a saying in Nowism: be to become. If you want to become a great nurturer, then be one now. Find creative ways to activate that part of your soul, and watch how the universe like responds to that, because it is a dance, and it's all very much on track. And you are seen, you are loved, you are heard, you are validated. And just by you like taking that position with yourself first, then the universe can respond. Yeah, acknowledge you first, and then the rest will be given.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Oh, thank you so much.
yeah, blessing.
Um, yeah, last little piece. I just want to honor and celebrate the pieces you are wearing that you
Oh,
picked as
yay.
part of this
They just arrived.
episode. Yeah,
Yeah. And the old favorites.
I know. I know, adorned with Ananda.
Yeah.
Because, we both have been witnessing each other's journey for a long time. And in a way, these creations have so much of that intention as well, right? Of like, what
Yeah.
are the little reminders? They're like the wearable post-it notes, right? Of like the
Yes.
things that
They are
that we need
talismans.
to, yeah,
100%.
hear. And I'd love to hear just a couple moments of what these pieces mean to you.
Yeah, for me, it was funny because I didn't really go with the whole moon piece, but you told me like I picked two full moon pieces,
Mhm.
and for me, they represent what it is to just have a relentless shine. No matter how
Mm.
dark it is, to be just absolutely in absolute fullness and wholeness. And that mystical magic of like the moonstone is so like it's just so beautiful, and it's a lot softer than what I would have bought in the past, right? I would have been like, you're sort of more like your labradorite or some of those darker colored pieces. But I feel that there is an opportunity for these talismans for me to be truly reminded to align and to honor emotions, but to be bright, and to not worry about whether my bright light is sort of intimidating to people. They must just put on sunglasses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And if it is intimidating, there's a good chance that actually at the end of the day it is inspiring. And
Right? Yeah.
yeah.
And I want to acknowledge you. You are inspiring. The first
Mm.
time I met you, you were in a cafe in Bali. I was there, and you leaned over and you said, "Excuse me, I'm building this logo. I just want your opinion, this one or this one." And I just think about like, oh my goodness, how far you've come. Like Ananda was just an idea. And
Yeah.
and look at you, look at how much you have absolutely been in this huge unfolding of
Mm.
talisman creating, of meaning, the amount of like amazing artists that you support in Bali, all of those families. It really is been so extraordinary to just watch you unfold relentlessly, like letting your superhero powers express. And so
Mm.
even though I know you've had challenges over the years, the truth is your light is way brighter
Mhm.
than the darkness that you have experienced. And I
Mhm.
know that every single one of those challenges has just activated you more and more to create more beauty that we get to
Mhm.
share. So thank you.
Mhm. Oh my God. Yes. Thank you. It makes me giggle. I'm like, when I mentioned, oh, I need to like show up for something, like, but the marketing was like, we need you to record a video for these new rings. They're called From Darkness to Light, and I'm about to do that. Like once we complete this, and it's just also so interconnected. For you just to well, everything we just spoke about, but yeah, thank you for seeing that as well, and the work that goes into always remembering that, yep, there's dark moments and
Yeah.
there's the light. Keep shining. I love that you pick the shine pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so you, and yeah, I just keep seeing you brighter and brighter and brighter. I'm so incredibly grateful for you.
Oh,
No
bless you.
words. Yeah.
Likewise.
um I know that's not very much in the now, but I'd love to hear what's coming down the pipeline for you in terms of creations.
Uh-huh.
How
So
can
much.
people find you?
I know, right? Well, on a human level, so much life. I'm leaving America at the moment, and I have a beautiful fiance,
Mm.
and we're moving to Australia, and that is huge. We're exporting dogs, and we're getting married, and it's going to be the most outrageously quirky wedding ever. So a lot of that in the mix. I'm doing a Bali retreat this year, which might interest some of your
Mm.
human people out there. Like if you want to come and be a part of a mindfulness journey that is a lot of laughs and a lot of fun, but dive into the culture of the Balinese, who are the most present of us all, actually. You couldn't get a more Nowism culture. Then, yeah, please check that out. Otherwise, yeah, lots of writing this year. There's a lot of greatness in the fable side of things, and an oracle deck, and yeah, we're working towards making the larger story, the big story of free will. And so yeah, there's a lot of fun. We have weekly classes with Nowism. There's the game of Nowism fundamentals is currently an online course, so that's available too. But yeah, all your people can look me up. Instagram's probably a good way to do that. Kat Nowism with a K, Kat Nowism. I'm also on Facebook. What else? Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
we're
there's a
gonna
lot of fun.
definitely put all the links in the show notes and
Yeah,
the information about the retreat as well.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, but anyone who's felt moved by our session today, please send me a message. Tell me what you're going through. I love hearing human stories.
Mm.
Yeah, I love
Amazing.
connecting. So yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
thank you, Kat.
Big loves.
Oh,
So much
love
love to you.
you.